A U.S. Court of Appeals on Monday heard oral arguments on whether a ban on the app TikTok is constitutional. Here to explain what happened in the proceedings is Emily Baker White. She's my colleague at Forbes and a senior reporter on our tech team. Emily, thank you so much for joining us.
Great to be here.
So, this legal case has really been going on for a number of months, if not years. Can you just give us the 30-second context to what led us to oral arguments today?
Yeah. So in April, Congress passed a bill called PFACA, or the Protecting Americans from Foreign Controlled Apps application, which would impose either a forced sale or ban on TikTok. So either TikTok's Chinese parent company ByteDance has to divest from TikTok, sell it to a US company, or the company will be banned. An important piece of context there, the Chinese government has told ByteDance that it can't sell TikTok. It's not allowed to sell the recommendations algorithm that undergirds it. And so ByteDance is stuck between two governments telling it contradictory things. And the sort of last resort that ByteDance has is to come to the US government and say, the thing that you are asking us to do is an impermissible restriction on speech, not just our speech, but the speech of 170 million people in the United States who use TikTok today.
And what happened in court today? What stood out to you in the oral arguments?
Yeah, so a three-judge panel asked questions of three lawyers, one lawyer for TikTok and ByteDance, which are going through this process together since TikTok is owned by ByteDance, another lawyer for American creators or users of the TikTok app, and a lawyer for the Department of Justice. And a lot of the discussion today was about this recommendations algorithm and whose speech it is and whether that speech should be protected. Because the recommendations algorithm is property of ByteDance, because it is made by engineers who are all over the world, including many in China, the government's position is that that's not speech that's subject to the First Amendment. It's not protected speech because it's not the speech of an American actor. Now, even foreign speech, even foreign propaganda, let's assume it's foreign propaganda, right? TikTok and ByteDance will say it's not, but for the moment, let's assume it's foreign propaganda. Americans do have some right to consume foreign propaganda. There's actually case law on this where if Americans want to read Russia Today, if Americans want to read, Communists Are Us, they can do that. And the First Amendment protects consumers of that information as well as speakers. And so even if the recommendations algorithm is not itself protected speech, it may be speech that Americans have a right to consume. Creators, additionally, people who are actually posting on the TikTok app, made a sort of cousin argument to that argument, which is that they're allowed to collaborate with foreign actors in order to get their speech out into the world. And they analogize to being, say, an American author working with a foreign book publisher, right? You have a right to collaborate with foreign actors to create your speech. And creators say that's what they were doing here. That was a lot.
No. That's fascinating. And I don't know whether to go to the creator angle or the First Amendment law case study angle first. And the nerd in me is going to go First Amendment case law, because I never quite considered the analogy with an American writer working with a foreign imprint to produce a book. How did the judges respond to the arguments in this First Amendment arguing?
So the judges seem inclined to recognize that there is some First Amendment component to this case, right? The government, the DOJ, wanted to analogize this to a bookstore that gets shut down for code violations. Yes, that has an effect on speech, but the effect is incidental. We're not going after the bookstore for code violations because it's a bookstore, because it's distributing speech. We're going after it because, in this case, I believe there was prostitution going on in the bookstore or something like lewd and untoward. And TikTok and ByteDance will say, yeah, this isn't actually an analogy to that case, because in that case, the law applied to everyone. The code applied to everyone. Anybody who was doing lewd, untoward things would be sort of equally penalized by that law. And in this case, we have something different. We have Congress having singled out TikTok and ByteDance as examples of this sort of narrow category of potentially foreign influenced applications. And Congress did a weird thing when they wrote this law. They made it applicable to more than just TikTok, right? If the next TikTok comes along and is Chinese or Russian or Iranian and is sort of controlled by a foreign adversary in the same way. Congress says this isn't just about TikTok, this is about them too. But then Congress made a second category in the way they wrote the bill. And they said, okay, so if an app meets all these facial requirements, then the president can designate them as a security threat, and then the president can, they can be banned. Or if the company in question is TikTok or ByteDance, then they're automatically in that category. And TikTok and ByteDance are going, yeah, you can't target us and then say that we have sort of a different, that we automatically meet a requirement that other companies would have to go through a bunch of additional process to meet. And so that was a factor too. TikTok and ByteDance would also say that the reason the government wants to ban or restrict or force a sale of TikTok and ByteDance is more related to speech than the reason that the government wanted to shut down that bookstore, right? The stuff that the government was worried about in the bookstore case really wasn't speech. The stuff that the government is worried about here really is speech, because if we're talking about the sort of risk that the Chinese government could try to mess with the recommendations algorithm to show us pro-China messages, that may be bad. That may be a thing that we're worried about, but it's speech, right? And so the reason for this law is pretty speechy, which is a thing that the judges took a long time to sort of talk about and think about.